back to Headline London. So, what's wrong with hipsters, beards, no offence, Ian, and trendy coffee shops? Well, plenty, according to Hackney heroine Pauline Pierce. The grandmother who became famous for shouting down yobs during the London riots has come out to say that gentrification is now threatening Hackney and not the looters. But isn't this much needed revenue that all of this gentrification is bringing to deprived parts of the capital, or just another form of social cleansing? Well, to talk about all of that, we've got bearded Ian Dump from politics.co.uk and blogger and journalist Sam Hooper. So do you agree with Pauline here? Do we have a real problem here for deprived parts of London?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's a bit late on the Hackney thing. Hackney's sort of been done, and Dalston's been done, and kind of Peckham's gone as well, really. So that wave has already swept through London, always towards the east, you know, just that's always the way it drives. There's a quite healthy bit, I think, where we sort of get more of a middle-class investment in an area, you improve the facilities in an area, you improve the look of it. That's not too bad. However, this is part and parcel of something which is really about the freedom of capital, which is really about a global super rich and a super rich from the city starting to own this city, this place that we live, and to the detriment, really, of real Londoners.
I mean, I think this is the point that Pauline's making, that unfortunately it's the real Londoners, poorer Londoners are being pushed out. They can't afford, these great coffee shops are coming in and they can't even afford to buy a cup of coffee with it.
Well, I can sympathise with that worldview. I mean, if you've lived, for example, in a council estate in Hackney your whole life, now you're raising a family there as well, and it's being demolished to make way for, say, a luxury high-rise, then the obvious scapegoat that you might well turn to is the bearded hipster who's just opened the gluten-free pizzeria down the road. I mean, that's something that's happened, but the problem, I think, is a lot deeper than that, really. The problem is Britain's complete lack of a housing policy, London's lack of a housing policy, and the lack of house building that's going on. When you don't have a housing policy, when you're not building new houses, the price is going to go up astronomically, and I think we saw, was it an 800% increase since 1980? Obviously, it's not adjusted for inflation, but it's huge. I mean, it's a problem that's not being addressed by any of the political parties, so the Conservatives obviously don't want to touch the issue because if you build more houses then prices stagnate or fall and that hurts their core voters. Labour, probably in their ideal world, want us all being clients and tenants of the state, so they don't really have anything very interesting to say on the subject either, so it's just going unaddressed. So you have this cycle where, you know, a new area is identified as being up and coming, young creative people move in, the bearded hipsterisation begins, the new amenities come, which as Ian said is great, then that forces up the house prices, which means that some of those creative people do get priced out as well as the original tenants. So the bankers replace the hipsters and then you have a new rich area and the process begins again somewhere else. If there's more house building, then you could break out of that cycle or at least stop it so you had the benefits without the negative costs.
Is it really that simple, the fact that there's a lack of housing is causing all of this?
I would actually say that probably one of the best things you could do for this country, bar none, be build more affordable housing. And you're perfectly right to point out the way that the political parties have an investment in the status quo, that the Tories really put their own party advantage above the national advantage in terms of not building any new housing. So absolutely, the main thing we need to do is housing. The other thing we need to do is to create a more egalitarian system of the way that we organise property. Property taxes are a joke. I mean, London is essentially a tax haven, that's what it is. I mean, you've got Bloomberg, the guy that is mayor of New York, he lives at, you know, I think it's 20 million quid his house. He pays £2,000 property taxes, that's what this guy pays. And even if you just look at council taxes, it's still a very regressive tax system. So it's so laughable when Labour come out and say, well, look, we're going to introduce a mansion tax. That is tinkering. What we need is to look again at the way that council tax operates to make it fair for poor people and fair for average families.
Is that what it's about? Then we need to just maybe sort out the council tax issue to make sure the rich are paying what they should be paying and then the poor, you know, maybe don't have to pay as much as they could do.
Sure, I think you can tinker with the tax code and I think that will help. It is currently very regressive, council tax, but I think you need to take more concrete action if you do want to preserve the benefits of gentrification, not the costs. So, for example, you need a massive house building programme. Nothing to do with taxes. You need to build, there needs to be bricks and mortar, you need to build more houses. Preferably, you need to find a way of penalising property owners who don't develop brownfield sites they currently own. I think that would also go a long way to helping. You can do that by having new zoning laws that mandate building if you're sitting on property you're not using. Maybe as well, sometimes it's suggested, if you have a new high-rise and selling the units to UK residents first, so they don't all get swept away by foreign investors right away. So I think those are some of the things that you can do, as well as the tax code issues, but you know, it's going to take a lot more than changing tax codes to deal with this problem.
Well, look, is it all bad? Let's find out. We'll find out what our viewers think. We've been asking you, our poll today is London becoming too gentrified? We've been asking you, headed over to londonlive.co.uk and 47% of you say yes it is, and 53% say no. Also take a look at some comments that you guys have been sending us on Twitter and Facebook. We've got Lee who says London's areas have always changed and been up and down on their luck, but the way things are going, only the rich and the old will be able to afford any kind of decent life here. The city will be culturally dead. Next up, Twitter Curtis says, I know far too many people who've had to decide whether to eat or pay their rent. Nothing is wrong with developing or changing areas, but surely this social cleansing of certain parts of London is not the way to go. And up next we have MLB Agency. They kick all the poor out and let the rich move in. Lol, Dalston is not Dalston anymore. Hashtag gentrification. Okay, so this guy obviously getting a kick out of people getting kicked out of Dalston there, but I said it's not all bad. I mean, I have to say, walking down Tottenham and seeing a Costa, and I was hoping to go down and get some plantain and supermalt, was a bit of a shock, but it was a nice shop. I thought, great, lovely cappuccino, good latte.
There are definitely parts of London that could use a little bit of gentrification. I mean, I think we all accept that. They look a bit grey and a bit hopeless, and they might, benefit from a chocolate shop or a coffee shop or something like that. There's also a certain extent to which this is always the case with London. Peter Ackroyd, who's probably wrote the best history of London, said, the only god this city ever worshipped was Mammon, the god of greed. And it's always been like this. Even after the Great Fire of London, there was attempts to create order in this city so that it would look in the way that Paris does, like these great big boulevards, as if there's a structure to it. And London never responded to that, because all it responds to is profit. So to a certain extent, we're looking at a very modern version of that. But this is more pervasive, this is more dangerous, because the extent of the inequality that we're seeing, because of the global super rich, because of the city, and because of an unfettered market economy, it's penalising us.
Ian, listen, and Sam, thanks so much for joining us today. That's it from Headline London for this week. We'll see you on Monday from 12:30. Hope to catch you then. Goodbye.